did not get any messages on the group asking for any topics. However, there's a couple of people in the room, and someone has suggested to talk about the state of mind of the Buddha to be as he left home to become a renunciant, as he left the lay life. While you would not know exactly what the state of mind of a person is, there is a lot that he speaks about in the discourses given to have some indication of what inspired him to leave that life. So, the Buddha to be, his name was Prince Siddhartha Gautama. Yeah, so he was a prince of a small kingdom. His father was a king, quite wealthy. In the suttas, you can see he lived quite a luxurious life. You know, the kind of food they ate, the clothes they wore. He had 3 palaces, right? One for the winter, one for the summer, one for the rainy season. And they were only attended by women. So he had all the sensual pleasures, the 5 chords of sensual pleasures was at his disposal. He was enjoying. He had a wife called Yashodhara. There is quite a lot of stories in the commentaries, not in the suttas themselves, about, him and Yashodhara as well, to give an indication that they were quite a close couple, very loving and very understanding. A couple as well. So, with having all of those, and he's quite intelligent, very handsome. So he's had everything, right? And life is going pretty well for him as well. And you would wonder, when everything is going so well, why would you leave home? What was the problem? What was he looking for? Right? So this is important to bring up. Even some of you who are in the audience or in the Zoom audience might know the story. It is always important for us to make that mind state current in our own life, because even if you know the story, why we are still stuck here, why our meditation isn't going well, or why you are stuck in home life or with all of these things, is because it hasn't really gone inside our mind. We haven't come to understand in the same way that the Siddhartha Gautama understood it. So he had a very sheltered life, because when he was born, his parents, at that time they had in India astrology. So there was a prediction that he could either become a very powerful king, but more likely that he actually will renounce and go and become a great ascetic or a great monk, or like somebody very special, a Buddha, an awakened being. So his father, of course, did not like that idea, because his only son, and he wants the son to become the next king, right? And have children and go forward like that. So, of course, the father wanted his son to be the next king. Therefore, he decided, okay, I should keep my son almost. He was almost like in a prison, so to speak, like going between the 3 palaces, enjoying all the sensual pleasures. But then it was kind of like a prison in a way sometimes, you have that. But, and one time it says, that not one time, because over a period of time, you can't escape but see. At least his father would be somebody who is old, right? So even if he didn't go out to see people, even though all his attendants were young, beautiful people, still his family has people who are old, right? His father would be getting old. They might have had a grandfather and other people that are old people. So as he started to pay attention and notice people getting old, he started to realize this old age seems like suffering, seems like painful. Like when you are young, fit, healthy, and energetic, you can't understand. But then when you see older people, when they start to get up from the chair, they're groaning. Yeah, you can see how they walk, how they talk, how the dental systems I don't think was as great. So losing their teeth, losing their hair, they're not looking as beautiful as they used to. So once he started to sort of pay attention to the fact of getting old, then he realized, am I also subject to this very nature? I too have a body. Am I also going to get old? So when he realized, well, I too am subject to getting old, he realized, well, I have a big problem. If I can't avoid getting old and getting into these sufferings of old age, is there a way that I can avoid that or overcome that rather the suffering of old age? That would be good. But then he started to see maybe somebody even in the palace or outside of the palace. The story says of the four sights that he saw, but it's actually in another Buddha's story, but not the current Buddha story. It's only in the commentary. So for the current Buddha, it doesn't. The story is not quite accurate. But however it is, he still pays attention to people getting sick. Maybe his father got sick, maybe his wife got sick, maybe he himself got sick. Because when you have a body, even though how healthy you are, eventually, you are prone to getting sick. We saw that during COVID, even Olympic athletes who are supposed to be really strong and healthy died. Whether you were strong or healthy, certain sicknesses you can't. Cancers come into very healthy people and they suddenly disappear at a young age from your life, even. So, sickness is something that comes when you have a body and you don't know when and what kind of sickness that comes in. And he definitely saw when sickness come in, it's even more suffering than old age. Old age itself is a problem, but sickness is even more of a suffering. Certain sicknesses are really unbearable. And of course, those days there were medicines, but I don't think they had as strong and as, fast acting painkillers and procedures as we have now. So, because you can see when they got sick in other places, even as a Buddha, he still got sick. And he describes, the kind of headache he had. It was like as if he had a rope around and two strong men were pulling it apart. So the head's going to split. That's how painful the headache was. Says, the stomach ache was like as if the stomach was burning with fire, and the other pains was as if somebody has, cut you open with a knife, and then that kind of pain. So that's the kind of pain he was describing, saying when you get sick, quite incredible pain. So he realized, wow, if I am all too prone to getting sickness, I want to find a solution for this. Is there a way that I can overcome? Otherwise, why am I living my life so heedlessly? Why am I searching and pursuing things that are also subject to old age and sickness? Because all these things, all the sensual world is like that. I'm just wasting my life covering it all up while I'm young, intoxicated by youth. They say, like when you're young, you forget about these things unless we talk about this like that. Otherwise, it doesn't come to us. Yes, you see old people, you can sit next to an old person, a sick person, but it doesn't really touch us. Okay, they're sick and they're old, but you don't feel it as strongly unless you really pay attention to it, which is when he sort of came to this realization. And then he probably came across death, human beings dying, and we started to focus attention on the idea of death. He realized, my goodness, this is also not fun. Sometimes when I ask the question, are you ready to die? Some people say, yeah, I don't mind dying. Then I ask, are you ready for your loved ones to die? And they say, no, no, no. Loved ones, they can't die, but I don't mind if I've died. Some people, of course, say, no, no, I'm also not ready to die. At least they're honest. But some people say, but the thing is, when you die, let's say, when your loved one died, you only lost one person. right? That person who you love, they die. But when you die, all of your loved persons are separated from in one go, right? Not only your loved people, everything also gone. So it's a big separation, your death. So this is difficult. It's quite a painful state, right? Just being separated is hard enough. Like sometimes our loved ones moving to another country or going away from us, or they're no longer our friend. It's painful and heartbreaking enough. But imagine death. Death is a very painful state if you're still very attached to and attached to this body, and also the pains of this body and our existence coming to an end, and also not knowing what is going to happen when we die. That's the other thing, right? We don't know what's going to happen when we die. So, I mean, the Buddha says what happens because he has some knowledge after his enlightenment. But for many people, you also don't know. Even if you know that there is rebirth, we don't know where we are going to be born. It depends on how it is, whether we are going to get a human life or any other form of life. Are we ready for that? So it is kind of a very concerning matter, this idea of death. And the very interesting part of that is also death can happen anytime. Can any one of us here die before the end of this Dhamma talk? Can I drop dead mid-sentence? Sure, it can happen. It has happened in past, right? Some people during giving a talk have dropped dead because aneurysm, all kinds of heart attacks, all kinds of things happen. Yeah. Anybody can die anytime. This is another thing that we don't awaken to. Yes, we can die, one thing, but when is what we don't know, and it can be even now or very soon. Maybe we might have only few minutes, few hours, couple of days, couple of weeks, we don't know, or many long time, we don't know. So when Siddhartha Gautama started to reflect like that, he realized, why am I, enjoying all of these things when there is a very serious problem in front of me? I am heading towards old age. I am heading towards sickness. I'm heading towards death, towards being separated from everything that I love and care, and being united with maybe things that I do not like. We don't know where we are going to go. When he realized that, he realized, my goodness, there is no time to waste. I want to find a solution for this. I want to overcome this. And that was the main reason. That was the kind of mind state that got him out of the intoxication. Because being young, when you have that energy and all of that, you forget that there is a problem. And when you have lots and lots of money, also you're enjoying your life, you forget these things. Yeah, so there's so many, and when you're in good health, yeah, then you forget because you're enjoying your time. But we see this when people suddenly get sick, they suddenly remember the teachings. When somebody very close to them dies, suddenly they wake up, and things like this. But that's why it's called an intoxication. Like you are intoxicated with these things and you can't see the reality. But when you listen to a Dhamma talk like this, when we bring home the points, it's something even a small kid can say, yes, I understand what is being said, nothing so complicated. Yes, these things seems like a big problem that I am going to have to face. There is no escape. Once born, the only certain thing to happen is death. Everything else in our life is uncertain. It can happen or can't happen. We can't be so sure about anything else. So when that idea comes, you really realize, my goodness, I can't waste time. And how can you lose that interest to just indulge in life, eating yummy food, singing songs, dancing, music? It's not that anything wrong with those things. You realize, what for? It's only this much. Again and again and again, just that much. And living life so heedlessly when there's a really serious problem coming at you every day, every second, every step of your life, right? So when you think like that, that is when we get that energy, arouse our energy to have, do the right thing, with this life. What is the purpose? What is the meaning of this life? A couple of weeks ago, I spoke to this in a Thursday Dhamma talk as well. So it is really important to every day even reflect and see, what am I doing with my life? How am I living? What is the purpose? Why am I here? How should I be? These are important questions. Is it just to enjoy a little bit of these things, which are only that much? We know the yummiest food, how yummy it is, the most beautiful music, yes, and all of these things we know. But it's only all this much. And is it about just building up a career, building up a family, achieving some goals, or even doing some great service to the humanity? Is that what whole life is about? Or is there much more to life? And how do you decide whether you are successful or not successful with your life? In general, the people say the idea is success is calculated or seen as how educated you are. How much money do you earn? How many things? How big is your house? How success is your family life? How many good contacts do you have? How much knowledge do you have? How many places have you been? How much experiences do you have? Or all of those things. How many things have you achieved? How many degrees did you get? Or whatever. This is how we try to look for success in life, right? But is it really success? Now think about it. If you die tonight, can you take your big house with you? All the things, the amazing things that you have in there with you? All your loved ones, are they going to come with you? All your money, the big millions of dollars you have, can you take with you? What can you take? Even can you take your knowledge with you? Nothing, right? We can't. If you die tonight, you can't take any of those things with you. But the one thing that goes with the stream of consciousness as it leaves when you die, that means it's the death of the body, right? The body sort of is no longer alive. It just becomes like a piece of meat. But the stream of consciousness, which is the mind, moves on. And together with that goes the states of minds that you have built in, the good and the bad that you have done. Yeah. So they have joy, happiness, or remorses and regrets and all of those things. So karma, intentional actions, and which are leading you to consequences. So that's the only thing that is traveling with us if you die tonight or now or anytime. So if you want to live a successful life, then where do you want to invest your time? It's very clear, right? It's on building up a good state of mind, purifying this mind with unwholesome states, purifying this mind with defilements. If your life has been a focus on purification of the mind, and as a result, that you do more and more intentional actions by body, speech, and mind that are wholesome, and the unwholesome things are getting less and less and less, then you have been living a successful life. So this is really kind of very important, because you realize what is important, what is success, what is the purpose of this beautiful human life that we have. Now, any of these teachings, these teachings, if you were an animal, can they understand? An animal life cannot understand this. Animals can't make sense of these things, right? They don't understand wholesome, unwholesome, anything. All they're concerned, they look cute. They look like they're happy, flying away, the birds chirping. It seems like butterflies going, and it seems like they're happy. But The life in the animal realm is full of fear and pain. Because one, they're wondering, what am I going to eat? Next concern, who is going to eat me? Right? So constantly, a lot of fear. And then pain, because they can't speak. They're exposed to all the nature. When it's hot, they don't have air conditioning. When it's cold, they don't have heating. When they're hungry, they're lucky if they find something to eat. And, all these problems in the animal realm, and they don't understand. Still, they don't have time or the capacity. So, beautiful human life that we have. And we have a mind that is reasonable, not mentally retarded to a point that you can't understand. Like, your mind is working, you're able to listen and understand what's going on, what's being said. So that's great. And you have opportunities. So lucky, you get to hear some valuable, wise ideas about life and what to do with life. So, and if it makes sense, then that is the thing. So this is what happened. So this is the mind state. So do you think that was very difficult then for him to live the life, because he realized I was just living in a prison of just indulging in these kind of sensual things when there is a very big fire burning outside. It's like fire, right? All these problems, it's like fire. Cause them as fires, the old age, sickness, and death, being separated from the, because they're painful states. Painful states are like being burned. When all that is coming at you so fast, he realized, I have to get out of here and find a solution. Otherwise, I am in big trouble. So that is a kind of inspiration that got him to leave. But the story, that is the legend, which is only in the commentary, sort of portrays that he just left the day his son was born secretly in the middle of the night. But that is what the legend says. But in the discourses, in his own words, he says that he left in bright daylight while his wife and family were crying. So, of course, with the separation, there would be tears. Even he probably was also crying because, of course, separation is difficult. Whether you understand there is a problem and you need to seek a solution, and you realize being stuck at home in this kind of environment, I'm not going to be able to cultivate the mind that is powerful enough to, purify it and understand what's going on. So I have to sort of leave and go into seclusion and find a good teacher. That's what he looked for, teachers in the beginning. So he had to leave. But of course, there would have been tears in both sides. But they have, even though didn't like, they understood. Especially, I think his wife. I'm sure they would have had a good conversation about it and agreed about it. Yes, separation is hard, but you know that that is necessary. It's so therefore, whatever it is, that's how he left him after having said them. Not secretly ran away or anything like that. But nevertheless, it would have been painful, because he also talks about in other suttas, like, even up until he was fully enlightened in that very last life too. Sometimes he would have feelings of desire come up in his mind. He would have missed his wife and child. Some other times, even anger came up. Sometimes, stupidity came in. So these states of mind was there. So he was struggling with these themselves. So sadness would have been there. He would have felt all of those things. But then you refocus on what is really important. Yeah, it's the same for us as well, right? We get inspired and we become monastics and we are working on this path, and these other feelings can come and touch us as well. So when, even as practitioners, when you're even in lay life, you practice, sometimes inspired, sometimes the inspiration goes away. So you have to readjust yourself and remind yourself again those very simple things. So the Buddha really highly recommend us to do that reflection even daily, as much as possible, about the problems of old age, sickness, death, and being separated from the loved ones. and having to be united by the difficult people, but also the factor that we are the owners of our intentional actions. They have consequences called karma and vipaka. Yeah, karma is your action, vipaka is the consequence. So our intentional actions, we can't run away from them. They are going to bear some fruit, good or bad, depending on what you have done. When you keep reflecting like that, the energy comes up to live the life in the right way, do the kind of right thing. So whatever it is, wherever you are, I mean, sometimes you have responsibilities, you're stuck in a family life or in a job. It's not for everybody to become monks and nuns and live this and that also doesn't necessarily straight away help. You have to be ready, but wherever you are at, how you conduct yourself. Are my wholesome mind states increasing the way that I am behaving, or unwholesome mind states increasing? So wholesome, unwholesome, good states of mind, ugly states of mind. So see, when you speak, what happens? When you act, what happens? The way you think about things, what happens? Wholesomeness increasing, that's a good way to do things. Unwholesome is increasing, check and see and do things differently because something is not helpful. Because the whole point is wherever you are at, whatever you are doing, you have the ability to continue to do and conduct in the right way. So, you are heading towards being successful with your life in that you are going to be ready for death. So other thing that the Buddha talks about is to remember that I will die and I don't know when. That is also very powerful when you remember that I will die and I don't know when. And also, like, death isn't the end of everything, that you'll be reborn again. That's a problem. That's why birth is the other factor. So birth also is a problem. So jati, it comes up as well. The Buddha realized, okay, being born is the problem because once you're born, you're prone to all of these problems. But at death, if everything ends, then it's not a big deal because you can try to figure out to live this life in a reasonable way. Death happens and it's all over. But the fact that we are born again and again and again up until full enlightenment, then you have to go through all of this trouble again. Be a baby again, get sick again, get old again, die again, being separated from our loved ones again and again and again and again, and everything else that are difficult to hear, words that you don't want to hear, be with people who you give a hard time to you, yeah, losing things, your house burning down, people, all kinds of things that happen in people's lives. You've been there, done that many times. How many lifetimes? Again and again and again. So that's why being born is also a problem. So that is why we have to be motivated to find. So for the Buddha to be Siddhartha Gautama had a big job to discover it, right? He had to work very hard to practice, cultivate his mind, and he went to many, many teachers, but he couldn't find the answer. And finally, with a deep meditation, he came to the realization. So what was the realization? He realized, craving, our desires is the main problem. It is because of our desire, our longing for things, our going out to want to get things is causing the suffering. So not only just sensual objects and wanting them, but also wanting to exist or wanting to non-exist in the other way. That means that suicidal feelings of wanting to end your life with negativity because suffering so much, but in a negative state of mind. That too isn't helpful because it's like you are here and you want to end it in that way, but not like that. But things come to an end naturally when the craving goes away, when you understand what all these things about, that there isn't anything here. So that's just only by theory that we know, but as you practice, when you come to understand the conditional nature of our life, the empty processes that we are, you get disenchanted little by little, and then you get more motivated to live the life in a beautiful way. So not to get too stressed about things, because these some things can get a bit too much for people if they're not in the right time to hear this, and it can also become a bit depressive to people. Or what's the point? It's all difficult. And not to worry, these things happen over a period of time. Important thing is to remember just to be kind as much as possible, as to be giving as much as possible. Uplift your mind, bring up joy by making somebody else happy. Live in a way, your conduct that is good. So being good feels good. That kind of little things, as you do, you start to get energy into your mind, energy into your body, and you start to feel good. Yeah. So this is really, really important. And whenever you get lazy, when you get sort of sidetracked from your interest in the path, then you remind yourself again what is important. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have to say, which is not very much, hasn't taken that long time. So there is a question. Thank you. Venerable Karunika, could you elaborate a bit on the wholesome mind states? Okay, thank you. This is really interesting, yeah, because who knows what's wholesome and unwholesome? Do you know? How do you know what is wholesome and unwholesome? I think some time ago, maybe last year sometime, I was invited to give a talk at the assembly at a Christian school, because the school, the kids, they promote them to learn other religions. So they invite people from different religious faiths. So I was there, and the kids were very engaging, and they were asking. And one of the questions, one of the girls there asked, maybe 15 or 16-year-old girl asked, how do you know wholesome and unwholesome? Good question, isn't it? How do you know wholesome and unwholesome? So one of the best, because sometimes we think, okay, we get a kind of feeling, because anything wholesome means that you are not harming or hurting yourself or harming or hurting another, right? If you're harming or hurting yourself and harming and hurting another, that is unwholesome, right? But sometimes it's very hard to know, right? Some things are so subtle. On the surface, it seems like it's actually helpful. Or in the short term, it feels like it's helpful. But there is harm in the long term. Do you understand? Certain things that you do seems good, not harming, doesn't look like it has any harm in the short term, on the surface. But if you continue like that for a longer period of time, it could have unwholesome coming up, harm and hurt coming up to yourself, to the other, or to both. But this is sometimes difficult. So you have to use that too. This is one way of knowing what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. But also, this is where you go also for the guidance from somebody who you have some confidence in. So this is where, if you do think that the Buddha was somebody who was wise, who was enlightened, who knew about the world and what is going on, and that his teachings are, wise, and you can try them out and see whether it works and makes sense. And then if you have some confidence in such a person, then they also explain what are the wholesome and unwholesome. So some things are not too complicated to know, like killing. Anybody can know, can be unwholesome, right? Stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and these kinds of things. There are very things, and there are many other things. These are the very basic 5 precepts that is coming up in Buddhism. But there are others. As you learn the discourses, then you get to hear, not to refrain from this and to, do this. And then you understand, okay, what is wholesome and what can be unwholesome. So wholesome mind states are the mind states that when you have wholesome mind states, one of the things that you feel is incredible energy in your mind. It's very different to the kind of energy that you get from like a high that you get from the sensual world, because there are many things in the sensual world can give you a high dopamine hit or whatever. But even getting angry sometimes gives a boost of energy to your mind, but not at all that kind of energy, but a very powerful, strong, alert, beautiful, elevated state of mind when the mind states are wholesome. But when the mind states are unwholesome, it's dark, it's constricted, lack of energy, down. Yeah. So this is a way to also understand. So then you know what are these wholesome states. They are states of kindness, generosity, affection, yeah, truthfulness. So these kinds of things are um, wholesome. Opposites of this, being stingy, being selfish, lying, hurting, harming, killing, and those things you can see, that what happens to the mind straight away. So that's how, so getting guidance from somebody, a spiritual teacher maybe, who you have confidence in, and then you can practice and apply and see whether it works. How do you feel when you live like that according to those instructions, what they say as wholesome and unwholesome? And then you can also find for yourself a little bit by exploring or learning from our mistakes. So sometimes you don't know ahead of time, but later you realize, oh, well, I do that, well, this is what happens, okay, I learn from it. So that's a way to go. Okay, so there's another question. True for some people do certain things thinking with good their intention, but later it says yes. Okay, so you're just agreeing, yeah, that can be harmful in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, what I feel is that sometimes maybe if I'm meditating, I bring up the wholesome qualities and whatnot. But one thing I find is that these are fleeting. It's like, I might leave my meditation and then I'm sort of back to normal life. And there may be moments where I'm still mindful,
Mm.
but I question that how can we, keep these states for a longer period of time?
Right, good question. Yeah, very good question. So the deeper the meditation is, the longer it lasts. But this is where just peace, just the stillness isn't enough, right? So even if you get the really deep states of meditation, you may be very peaceful, you may be very mindful for a few days, few weeks, or few months, even depending on how often and how deep the meditation was. But what has much more power is insight, the understanding. Once you understand, then there is a big shift. But of course, to have deep understanding, you need deep meditation, deep stillness, because that is what brings clarity. But we are talking about just a little bit of peace, a little 10, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour of meditation, of becoming still. And in that whole time, we haven't gone that deep, not got enough insights. But this is where also the reflections are very helpful. Yeah. So insight can come with those things. Like even if you got a little bit of insight into nature of our, existence by just listening to some of these things. And when that understanding suddenly clicks in your mind, that motivates you a little bit more not to do that. Like this, insight is like touching fire, right? Like if you hear about fire, fire is like that, fire is so hot, you will burn and it will be painful, but you don't know it if you haven't really experienced it, right? You only know about it. But one day when you have touched and burnt your finger, then you know. And after that, will you ever put your finger? You will never do that, right? That's what an insight does. With insight, it says it's seeing, through seeing. When you have seen something quite deeply, your mind turns away from that and you won't go back to that again. So it's like that. So insight shows. So even what you just mentioned, the fleeting nature of the mind itself is a small insight. If you keep watching that, your life will start to change a bit. You will start to get much more peace in your life because you realize, well, where are these mind states coming from? After a while, you start to see, actually, I create them. I am the creator of my mind states. Yeah, I give attention. And based on the views and perceptions that I have taken on board, and also with the kind of mood that is there, the neurotransmitters in your body, or so many things affect your mood, you concoct what you like. This is the thing. So they are fleeting, yes, they're transient, they don't last a long time. So you go from one to the other. Oh, so long, right? You can be so in love 1 minute and hate the person like anything after they really reveal something that is unacceptable the next moment, right? So this is how quickly when they challenge your view, when your perceptions get challenged, your ideas get challenged, and your mindsets change. So many ways. So when you see the fleeting nature of mindsets, you stop giving so much value to those things. So you stop getting so upset with these things. You stop rejecting them. You realize, oh, you only just got to wait for a little while and they are going to pass unless you hold on to them. You still can't hold on to for too long. Eventually, they're going to change because something else with big impetus going to come and take it over. But some people are very good at, holding on as much as possible. If you don't do that and just allow things to be, they just pass. So that itself is a lot of peace. But even somebody said something nasty to you, that has happened and gone long ago. If you want, you can keep remembering it and get upset and create sad or upset or angry mind states. Or you can just, it's finished now. What's the point in that? Yeah. And go to another thing. So, like this, when you come to see the fleeting nature of mind itself, you get peace. So insight brings very profound peace. Even small insight, the peace that comes stays with you. Whereas just the peace that you get from just a still mind is only there because when the mind is still, the hindrances are down. That's the peace, but they come up again. Just like you put a rock on top of grass, the grass is not growing, but the moment you remove the rock, the grass starts to grow again because the roots and everything is still there. But with insight, you are uprooting things. Little by little, you are pulling things out. So to that extent, your life is going to change. You're getting more and more peace. So that's why it is really important. It has to go together. You do have to have a peaceful mind, otherwise a confused, stressed, low energy mind is not going to understand anything much while you are at it. But never mind, we are all going to go through those states. But if you're able to reflect back to those, when your mind is still. That's what you need to do. So when after your meditation, before just getting up quickly and going, use that peaceful mind to understand a little bit of an aspect of your life. And then actually you get a different perspective, a different understanding. And there is a possibility for a big or small insight to come about. So whatever is an insight, they are irreversible changes in your mind. So that's the difference, not an idea or a knowledge that you take on board. Um, it can start like that, an insight, but once it's an insight, it's an irreversible change. Like you would not intentionally put your finger into fire ever. I mean, accidentally you might fall into or burn yourself, but not intentionally touch fire once you know. It's the same thing. You can't do it. Once you have seen something as being harmful, useless, and difficult, then you don't go towards that anymore. So this is when it is much more lasting. So you have, and then as the insight starts to grow and fill you up, this is why right view is incredible, right? So with right view, you develop lots of peace. So as the right view becomes stronger, you see the world differently. You align your view of the world with the way the world is. So there's less friction, less fight, right? So more peace then. We have lack of peace because our view is not in line with the way the world is, because we have much more wrong view. So when the wrong view is there, we are constantly fighting with world. Why me? Why this? Why I can't be that? And everything pointing out to the people, to the world, and there is no peace. But as the right view grows, you understand. With that understanding, with that seeing, you become peaceful. So, so keep going. Just every experience, whatever experience that is in front of you, see its gratification. There is gratification. Understand what it is. See also the danger of these things. See that that experience started when you contacted it with your mind, when you gave attention to it. When your attention moves to something else, that experience ended, you started with something else, right? So you see the start and beginning and end of these things. And then you realize the complete ending of whole thing happens when the craving ends, because craving is the first thing that gets you interested in everything, and you keep contacting the world with your five senses. So all of these things you can do so much even in a normal mind state, but more powerfully when your mind is peaceful. And slowly these things change. It is not like flick of a switch, but it builds up, it builds up, it builds up. As it is growing, you have more and more peace in your life. Yeah, okay. So Sandika said for Simran, and I suppose a commitment to morality can help keep wholesome mind states in your daily life. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yes, even that also very helpful, because more than, because we are all, well, that's a good point. We are all quite good with our bodily actions, right? We are not going around killing people, stealing things, and even we are reasonably good with our words. Also try our very best, but it's the unrestrained mind, the virtue of our mind. We have a lot of work to do. We think what we want to think, however we want to think. We could be killing and murdering people in our mind, screaming and yelling at other people in our mind, you know. And that kind of mind is difficult, but not even that for finding or whatever level it is, or even desires coming up, which we never think about as that bad, right? What's wrong in wanting coffee? So yeah, it's not that bad, but then it can lead to other things later, but whatever it is. So yeah, virtue of the mind is also very important. So when you take care of that, sense restraint, these are all coming up in the gradual training. And the more and more you have, especially sense restraint, then the ability to keep more peace, keep the wholesome mind states is more. So sense restraint does not mean that you close your eyes, and your ears you can't close anyway. You can't also close your mouth for food, right? You have to eat, and the nose also you can't close. So it's not about closing these things. If that is the case, then deaf, dumb, and blind people have it easy. But that is not certainly the case, but it is how you contact these things. How do you see things? So when you see something, see, we mentioned about the fleeting nature of our mind. How does desire arise? Do you reject something or you get attracted to something? What is happening? How do you deal with it? So you see, and if you want to restrain your mind, then there is a whole heap of instructions on how to. If it is very attractive and you're going to get into trouble, then you look into the features that are just elements or something. And if it is going to cause you difficulty, anger, and things like that, then you look into, not the area that is causing you that, but the good side of the person or the thing. So like that, there are many things. That's all of the teachings in here. But since restraint is an important aspect, how you listen to things. Yeah, how you listen to things, how you react to those things. So all of those things will help to also maintain the peaceful states longer as well. So yeah, those two things. Thank you, Sandika, for that comment. And then Rumi says, the mental states are also impermanent and not worth attaching to. Exactly. You have been contemplating and practicing well. Thank you, Rumi, for that. Right. So thank you, everybody, for putting in comments and questions. And thank you, Lumi, for your good questions. Was that helpful? Yeah. Was there anything that you didn't understand or you want to ask a further question about with what I said?
Now I have one question. If the Buddha left to like seek his own enlightenment, was what was like the spiritual practice that people were doing like around like in his family or in his city? Were they already worshipping a deity or was...
Yeah, that was the kind of thing, like Brahmanical thing. So there was like worship of deities and asking for things. So that was at the time of the Buddha, it was spirituality was very big. There were many, many religions. And one of the very common thing, because there was some understanding with some of the spiritual leaders, some had deep meditations, reasonable meditations, but they had the wrong view, thinking that whatever karma I have done, like that's the intentional actions and their results, you have to exhaust it and finish it. Then only you will finish everything. So there were a lot of people practicing in ways where they were giving a lot of pain to their body, thinking that by giving a lot of pain, I will exhaust all of my bad karma. So there were practices like that, like in certain other parallel belief systems that were around the Buddha's time. And then some others thought, like, if I stop all my perceptions, I shut down and become peaceful, then I will end as well. So those were the ones who were going into more like the arupa kind of states, where they were thinking neither perception nor non-perception state, all the way up to there. Like, if your feelings and perceptions could be shut down, then there will be no suffering, there will be no craving, and you will end. But that is coming also still by a with will trying to just do that. But the thing is, the Buddha says suffering is not to be destroyed. Suffering is to be understood. Parinyeya is the Pali word. So it is with understanding suffering that you overcome suffering, not by shutting down. But we all try to shut down suffering. Right? This is the thing. That was the difference. So all of those other belief systems was trying to do like that. Like my suffering can be reduced by giving harm and pain to my body or by shutting down. And there were many other, like some others thought if I behave like a dog, I will exhaust. I behave like a cow, or I stand on one leg, or didn't eat. There were so many things people were trying to do to get better, and some just worship deities and ask for things. So all of these things, but the Buddha realized by doing any one of those things, I am not going to overcome this big problem of becoming old, sick, and dead isn't going to go away, because after all of that, I'm still going to be born again. Because he even asked a question from these people. Now, when you're giving harm, pain to your body to exhaust your bad karma, do you know how much bad karma you actually have? They say, I don't know. By doing this today, do you know how much of it got exhausted? They say they don't know. So, that shows the stupidity of that kind of doing things. So that is why then with this awakening, what he realized is that we are, assuming a being where there is only just the processes that are conditioned by the past. That's that essence of non-self. That's a big thing that I just said in one sentence. But once you realize the conditioned nature and how the conditions are driving us, and then that driver is that craving, because when you have me, then I want to exist, and I want to experience. So when I have me, then I want to go get things, and I'm in that course of wanting to get things, I cause harm and hurt and difficulty to myself and others. But even if it is not so much harm, I still continue to go on and on and on with my craving. I keep going. So here I realize that it's ending of that craving by seeing the emptiness of the whole process, that there isn't anything really there worthwhile holding on to. Anyway, you can't hold on to things. Sort of once you see it very powerfully, that craving dries up. That's essentially like the fires get extinguished. Fire of passion, fire of hatred and ill will, fire of stupidity. They are the main three fires. They sort of extinguish, and that is enlightenment. Nothing very unfathomable, not anything like that. It is possible to sort of get an understanding what enlightenment is. Yeah. So, okay, thank you.